Hey guys, this is Dan with Gears and Gadgets. Thanks for tuning in. Back with another video a day till this channel hits 100K. Today is video 50, which blows my mind that I've been able to do 50 videos in a row. It's crazy. I'm in the middle of wiring up this Switch Pros SP9100. Where I left off the other day was I had installed the switch panel up here in the headliner. And when I was done, I was hitting the buttons and there was a lot of play in the headliner. And I just kind of figured, all right, whatever, it's fine. And then somebody left a comment saying that I should put some foam in there to reinforce it. And then I remembered, like, I have a 3D printer. What am I doing? So I roughed in and kind of came up with an idea of putting some blocks in there to help support it. And it's much more rigid than what it was before. I kind of got the angle wrong in there, so it could be a little better than what it is, but it's much better than what it was. And I'm very happy with that. Man, I got to tell you, that took so much time. These two screws up in here that you drop this out to be able to get in there are such a pain to get to, and to get them to like thread back in, it was a complete disaster. More so than the initial time that I took it apart, but sometimes that's how these projects go. So I spent a lot of time actually tidying up all the wires, getting them run down up alongside the A-pillar and down into the footwell, and that took quite a bit of time. That is for the data cable. Now what I love about this Switch Pros panel is that once you get this installed and the wiring run elsewhere, this is done. I don't have to come back to this again. Everything else heads back towards the engine bay because this is the brains to the entire operation. And then the harness that comes out of this is what powers everything else. So today I spent a bunch of time putting together the wire harness. It's always kind of a giant pain. I ended up pulling down back behind the battery. There's actually a hole in the firewall, a rubber grommet. And there is a tool that you can buy, which I'll link in the description down below. Highly recommend it. It kind of punctures through, then you can feed a feed wire through there, and then that wire becomes your pull wire. It's really easy, super clean setup. And now I have these wires here in the engine bay ready to go to mount into this module. That's my next hang up. But before we get to that current hang up, which when you're doing these projects, it's like, I don't know, 5 steps forward, 2 steps back sort of thing. It's like these massive strides followed by like, I got to go back and redo that one thing. So I ended up extending the wires. And the way that I do this is that this is the wire harness. And I always like to run 4 wires for power into the cab for the accessories that I run: radar detector, dash cam. We've got another radio, the strobe lights, those kinds of things. And then the other power leads I leave out in the engine bay. And you can see those are taped up here. So I always end up creating a longer pigtail here. Basically, I have to extend this wire harness because the wires they give you are kind of long enough, but I always want to make sure that I have enough going into the cab of the truck. I find extending those helps out quite a bit. And then there's also a blue wire that you want to tap into the fuse box into an ignition source, and that's what tells the Switch Pros panel that the truck has turned on, and it provides power to accessories where, you know, I can tell it to turn on the fog lights with ignition, things like that the truck currently doesn't do. And you can choose which accessories you want to turn on automatically or to remember the last state that they were in, those kinds of things. And it's really, really nice. So now I got everything buttoned up in here. I was able to fish all of the wires through. It is all put back together inside the truck for the time being. I have not run any of the power for the accessories down to that yet. That's going to be kind of the last step that I do when I hook this whole thing up, which is not currently hooked up because that is my current hang up. So here is where I am at. I don't know where to put this panel. I thought that I could mount it up maybe over here, but there's some heat shield here. It's actually some sound deadening, I think, which helps keep that diesel sound down from inside the truck. You actually realize when you start doing this project, there is a lot of sound deadening in these things. It's pretty crazy. Underneath the carpets, there's like at least an inch of sound deadening matte material down here, which makes a huge difference. Some additional foam back here. And when that carpet was pulled back and I was driving, so much more diesel noise. But I digress. So the problem I'm having in here is that I don't want to mount it right here because, well, there's the turbo. That's going to get super hot. I don't want this panel to be sitting anywhere that's going to get incredibly hot. And I think anything up over here might just be a little too toasty. And it's also just a really awkward spot. Had the power cable attached there, trying to see where my reach was. Let's just take that off. Down here, it's kind of like at this weird angle down. There's no flat spot there anyways. And like I said, it's getting too hot down there. So I thought like, okay, maybe here, but that's also really wonky. It's gonna get into the hood there. There's a little bit of a weather stripping there, and that'll just wear out over time and start digging into the hood. This over here wasn't flat enough. So I'm starting to look going like, man, there is nowhere to be found. With the F-150, I actually had it mounted flat, which you're not really supposed to do because if water sits on top of it, they say that's no good. Although it is sealed, I don't see how any water could possibly get in there if it's mounted that way, but they tell you not to. They tell you to mount it up like this. So I thought, like, you know, whatever. It was fine with the Ford this way, but now this little plastic panel is almost too high to the point where this wire harness will be sticking up and hitting the hood. So that's no go. Same thing with this fuse box here, still too tall. And then I'm thinking, okay, well, it'd be great right here, but this is also where the speedometer calibrator went. So I kind of started running out of space. Luckily, I had made this wire harness long enough, and the factory cable, this is the cable that goes up to the control panel, happens to be long enough to get me right here. I think this is going to become the spot, and then I'll be able to run this power cable, find a way to put something here to keep it from digging in, and then run this over probably to terminal number 1 here, and then power it from there. Drop in the comments down below, does that heat sink get super hot? Maybe I'll run this for a little while tonight and then throw the FLIR imaging camera on there to decide if that's a good idea or not. But I do think that I have enough distance there to make that not be any concern. Maybe even just 3D print a little bracket there that just creates a little bit of a rounded edge. It's actually probably what I'll do. Just put a 3D printed cap over that. So that's where I'm at with this whole wiring project. It's been kind of a slow grind, and also for everybody out there who's like, oh man, your garage is always so clean. How do you keep it so clean? I'm just like everybody else. It looks like this after almost every single project, but I do come out here typically at night, crack a beer when the garage cools down, and just do a little bit of cleaning up, jam into some music, and keep everything kind of organized, because that is the only way to do things. I also lost a lot of time today. You think to yourself like, man, you should have been able to get that whole thing wired up in one day. What's going on? I got really carried away today. I bought this table, which you guys saw in yesterday's video, and it did not have anything on the bottom. It was just these little metal legs, and it was driving me nuts because I thought like, man, what a great place for a trash can. So I 3D printed these little wedges to make this be level. I think I got it wrong just a little bit, but it was really cool because these legs actually taper. So they taper in 2 ways. They taper down, and then they're wider and taper down here. So it's actually a really funky triangular shape here to get, and the 3D printer just nailed it. And then I went to Home Depot, bought this piece of plywood, cut it to shape so that I actually have a little bit of a rolling trash can garage table desk sort of setup. I used to use this. It's not great for actually setting things on because, I mean, you got your tools and stuff. It's like a great tool cart, but I wanted something that was a little bit more like desktop surface, where I could also maybe just roll a tripod around the garage, like super multifaceted with this thing. This is the Remarkable I made a video on yesterday. I wanted more of like an actual desktop surface, not just the workbench. So I got a little bit carried away with that whole thing today. Sometimes I just like to get lost in those projects myself, not filming, because I don't know, it's fun to tinker without having to film everything. So with that being said, that's kind of an update on my wiring project here. I think I'll have that panel mounted up probably tomorrow, and then once that's mounted up, I'll just hook it to the battery, start wiring up some of those accessories. But I won't have an update video probably until everything's hooked up, and then I'll do a video, which was also recommended in the comment section, of kind of like the project beginning to end, maybe like a half an hour long whole project. But it's been a grind. It's been a hot day in the garage. It's also these, I use these tailgate supports. I get questions about this fan a lot in the comments, just like a 6 foot wide fan that I bought from Home Depot. But this truck is too tall. with the lift and everything on it. So if I open the hood, it'll actually hit the fan. So these tailgate supports, which I've actually never used for their intended purpose, work out really well to keep the hood at the perfect height so it's not actually smashing into the fan. Using the tools I got for whatever I can put them to work for. Again, this is video 50, which is crazy. I really appreciate the support. You guys have been awesome. I'm noticing a trend upward with the channel. The work is starting to pay off, and it's very much appreciated. So with that said, thank you guys very much for tuning in. If this is your first time tuning in, please hit that subscribe button down below. Remember, likes go a long way to help support the channel. I'll see you guys next time.